Delegation or abdication of duties, Nigerians react to Tinubu's Chatham House outing. Dogara dumps APC for PDP, fires back at Wike, says he has amnesia. Newly recognized union and ASU rival Konua threatens to sue federal government over withheld salaries. And also coming up on Politics HQ, police arrest Malawi Anti-Corruption Director Martha Chizuma for leaking information. South Africa Parliament postpones vote on Ramaphosa's impeachment. And joining me today on Politics HQ is Oluwatosin Odunfa, the new Nigerian People's Party candidate for Federal House of Representatives, Yewa, South-Ipokia Constituency. He joins us tonight on the program. Stay with us, Politics HQ. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome to Politics HQ. I am Gbenga Aborowa, standing in for Slyman. As the 2023 general elections draw near, a lot of attention has been placed on presidential polls, with candidates visiting the nooks and crannies of the country, canvassing for votes. But we must also stress that grassroots politics is equally important. Now, looking at representative democracy, Oluwatosin Odunfa, the new Nigerian People's Party candidate for Federal House of Representatives, Yewa, South-Ipokia Constituency, joins me now in the studio. A warm welcome to you, Tosin. And thanks for joining us on Politics HQ.
Gbenga, thank you very much. And as you already know, this is the second time that I've had the privilege of being interviewed by you.
Yes, in a different platform, though.
Indeed.
You're welcome. We're happy to have you. Now, let's start with this. The campaign season has been going on for a while as we inch towards the 2023 general elections. Would you say you're impressed with the level of conversations we've been having, the quality of the campaign, and the debate amongst the leading presidential candidates?
I think the first thing I'm going to say is this. From the very get-go, I'm going to want us to steer as far and as clear as possible away from this whole fixation on the presidential election. Mm-hmm. And frankly speaking, it's not because I don't want to say, oh, one candidate is great or, our candidate is fantastic. What I want us to know is that our generation, and perhaps the generation in front of us, made a mistake. Of course, they made quite a bunch of mistakes, but one of the mistakes that they made was a fixation on the presidency. Frankly speaking...
But why do you think it's that? Why are we so fixated on the presidency? Is it the Constitution, because they are all-powerful and the center gets most of the allocation and the resources?
I do think that is part of it. Of course, there is that whole idea that the presidential seat, and it's an idea, is super powerful, and that it can do and undo, and that ultimately, by fiat, it can transform the country. Ultimately, by fiat, it can simply make the economy better, and that all you need is somebody who is great, and perhaps somebody who is powerful, or perhaps somebody who is intelligent, super intelligent as the president, and they will change your lot completely. But that is a myth, and that's one of the things that we need to realize. It is a myth, especially because as powerful as the president may be, it's important to realize that there are more than 11,000 elected positions. Let it sink in. 11,000 elected positions. So it is impossible, frankly speaking, for one president, well, it's not impossible, but in our case, in the Nigerian democracy, it is not the power of one president that's going to ultimately transform the country. You heard recently President Buhari, in a sense, passing the buck and saying, governors
yes.
You are responsible for this level of poverty that we have here. But I would go a bit further and say it goes beyond the governors. But of course, the governors have a strong part because they have usurped the power of the local government. But guess what? They have only been able to usurp the power of the local government because people like you and I have refused to run for the office of the local government as tenaciously as people seem to support presidential elections.
Now, there's a general notion, I mean, it's not even a notion, it's a fact that the grassroots politics, a local government, and it's closer to the people, and they will feel the impact of governance more. So why have we neglected local governments in Nigeria, local government governance? If you ask a number of people, I'm sure not so many people can identify who their local government chairmen are. These are elective offices, and you have monies allocated to these offices every year. But people just don't really care. You don't have street lights, your drainage is full, everybody points at the governor, or even all the way to Abuja. How do we begin to change that perception?
You know, this is an excellent time to begin to talk about local government politics. And as a matter of fact, the reason is because if you, for instance, are interested in changing the status quo, you can begin to plan to run for local government. Now, most people don't even realize that local government chairmanship and councillorship are not on the ballot in February 2023. But it's a great time to begin to plan for it. So, for instance, I'm the candidate for New Nigeria People's Party for Yewa South-Ipokia Federal Constituency. So that's a House of Reps seat. And what that means ultimately is, even if you decided, or someone who's watching decided, hey, I want to run for House of Reps, right now you cannot do that for the next 4 years. But now, local government. It's important for people to realize that there are about 9,000 councillorship positions, which in a sense, they balance out the powers of the local government chairman. And there are 774 local government positions. It's a great time to begin to strategize for that. Because, look, if we don't have a big rush and a significant push to take those local government seats, the governors are going to continue to make it an extension of their power. And that makes us a much less democratic country. If we believe ultimately that democracy has dividends, the frank reality is this: until you take the local government seats away from the governors, we have a less democratic country, and unfortunately, we will be getting less of the dividends than we could.
And I guess everyone is just following the money, but we hope to change that soon. Hopefully, we begin to see the impact with next election cycles. Now, let's talk about your candidacy. Why are you running, and why the platform, New Nigeria NNPP?
Now, whenever people say, why are you running? For whatever reason, that meme comes to my head. Why are you running? Why are you running? And for me, it's quite simple. Or maybe it's not that simple.
It's not your first time out, so it's important to establish that.
That is correct. So this is the second time that I'm running, but it's still for the same reason that I'm running. The first time around, I did not make it beyond the primaries for very interesting reasons, but the frank reality is you live and you learn. But here we are, second time around, successfully a candidate, which means that my name is on the ballot. And take note, not everybody who claims to be a candidate is literally on the ballot. But thankfully, in my case, I am on the ballot. And if you vote in Yewa, South, and Ipokia, ultimately, your votes will count for me. Why NNPP? It's in the name, New Nigeria People's Party. The frank reality is we're looking forward to a new Nigeria. But it's important to remember this. And for anybody who is interested in politics, who at some point wants to run, you need to realize that all politics is local. What does that mean? It means you cannot simply say that you're going to run with a party because it is powerful nationally. You have to think about where you are running and where the opportunities are. Now, some may wonder, why didn't you choose perhaps one of the bigger parties? Now, if I wanted to look back in terms of strategy and say, oh, this is emergent strategy, then it was perfect. It was as though we saw the future. As we speak today, in my federal constituency, the two leading parties are not in the race as we speak. Literally, there is no...
Is there any reason for that?
Oh, of course, there's a reason. The frank reality is because the two parties, they've, in a sense, lived with a lot of impunity and illegality, and it has come home to roost. What that means ultimately is that they are not democratic constructs for the most part, and we were a bit wary of that. Not that we wouldn't have...
So they had problems in their primaries and selecting who to represent them.
They did, yes. And I wouldn't want to go into much details of that because that's not why we're here. But one thing is quite clear, that there were clearly unconstitutional and undemocratic principles that they had flouted, and some of their members took them to court, and here we are, neither of them is in the race. And of course, that opens it up significantly for us.
So we've established the fact that you say NNPP is a more democratic party. Now, why do you want to run? And what would you be giving the people of Yewa and Ipokia federal constituency?
One of the things that's critical that we establish is that the quality of leadership in Nigeria right now is abysmal. When I say abysmal, that one is like big English. Quality of leadership in Nigeria right now is in the pits, it is at the bottom, it is terrible, and unfortunately, it will not change very quickly. Why do I say that? If you look at the way our country has been run over the past several years, you can see that things are getting relatively, frankly speaking, things are getting very bad. If you talk about the economy, things are bad.
Looking at most indices. Yes.
Most indices, things are getting worse. Yes, we've seen a few changes here and there that are positive and worthy of, praise, I guess. But for the most part, Nigeria is getting worse. And I blame it on the quality of leadership, which is not to say that there aren't a few good leaders out there, but the point is about the concentration. So my background is chemical engineering, and concentration is something that we measure pretty significantly. And it works also in real life as well. And what do I mean by that? The frank reality is this: if you don't have a certain threshold, which is to say a certain minimum number of good, effective leaders that have capacity and that have vision, your country is going to lose its rudder, it will lose its direction, and it will go nowhere positive. So what I'm saying in essence to you is this: we need to increase the concentration of excellent leaders in Nigeria. There's a friend of mine, GRV, we're not in the same party, but he always says this, or he said it once, and frankly speaking, I've taken this
it was here
all the time. Oh, was it? Fantastic. Yes. He said that the quality of leaders in Nigeria is not a representation necessarily of all Nigerians, but a representation of those who have taken politics seriously. So to answer your question directly, I know that I would be bringing quality leadership into the fray, and ultimately would help increase the concentration of good leaders.
Now, Tosin, your critics will tell you that, look, you don't have the requisite experience in politics. You've never been to Abuja. You've not been an elected official. How would you respond to that?
It's very simple. I have more experience than most of the people that ever made it into the National Assembly. And frankly speaking, it's really about the idea that most of our leaders who are in the National Assembly, let's be real, and even if I don't say most, a significant number of them, frankly speaking, know nothing about the National Assembly. And but that's okay as well. But it's not okay for a country that is in an emergency situation. For the most part, people don't even know what the National Assembly is about. And by the way, that's part of the reason why I'm running. One of the things that most politicians know is this: you can run to win, but God knows what will happen. We're running to win, and luckily for us, it looks as though God is on our side, as we're literally in a lucky position where both APC and PDP are out of the race, knock on wood, permanently, in Yewa, South-Ipokia, right? That is what is happening now. But it's important to know that there are indeed ideals, there are indeed things that you must know about legislation, that you need to know about the Federal House of Reps, what exactly it is that we do.
How it connects to what we do in real life and how it affects our
How
lives.
it affects the bottom line.
I'm sure you've been on the campaign trail for weeks now in Yewa, South-Ipokia. What are the pressing needs of the people? When you talk to them, what do they want? And how has the interaction been?
So that's one of those things that one needs to see and feel to understand. Now, Yewa South-Ipokia is in a place called Ogun West. And Ogun West, unfortunately, has been marginalized for a long time in terms of leadership. Ogun West has never created a governor or produced a governor in Ogun State. And for those of you who know what that means, ultimately it means that you get pretty much the pittance if you've never really had a governor. But if you've had a governor in position, then you likely would have improved in terms of infrastructure, social and physical and otherwise. Now, one of the things that's quite clear is that if Nigerians are poor and if Ogun is poor, then Ogun West is poorer, sadly. And when I say poorer, I'm not talking about culturally. Culturally, we're super rich and we're great people, super intelligent, super driven, super visionary people. But one thing is quite clear, we are bearing the brunt of infrastructure lack. Yewa, South-Ipokia, frankly speaking, used to be significant parts of the breadbasket for the country, and they still are. And it's also important to understand that this is a border town. So there are two things that I think are critical, if not three. One, education. Two, agriculture. Three, the peculiar nature of living in a border area. My guy, if you've ever been to a border area in Nigeria, then you will know what it looks like. Frankly speaking, it's almost like there is an occupying force in your town, even though you are part of a free country. Now, the frank reality is that there's a lot going on in regards to what is called smuggling, fire war, as it were. But the reality is that there isn't any proactive and driven visionary approach to ensure that the people of Yewa, South and Ipokia are able to subsist as Nigerians and enjoy their own advantages of living on the border. Right now, unfortunately, it's a scenario where they are literally bearing the brunt of the country for living at the border. That's one of the things that's critical to them. Now, when we talk about education, it's a bit of a difficult thing because here's what I'll say. People of Yewa, South and Ipokia, they love education, they need education, they pursue education. But then their children go to school, they come back, and there's no job, no place to go. And ultimately, firewood is perhaps the only significant, option, right? But guess what? There are institutions, I'll let you carry on.
Now, so these are very important issues, and it applies across country. It's countrywide needs. Quick one, just before we begin to wrap up the conversation. You're just going to be one of 360 members of the House of Reps. If you get elected, how are you going to build consensus and drive people to go with your program and achieve the things you've promised the people of Yewa, South and Ipokia? And also, it's your second time out. What would you say about INEC's preparedness towards the 2023 elections? And of course, the all-important BVAS that the INEC team has said, it's going to make our elections almost foolproof, and it reduces the chances of manipulation and rigging.
I will address the INEC issue really quickly and then go on to what I consider to be more important. I'm quite confident in INEC's ability to ensure that these elections are as fair as possible.
Do you see an improvement from the last time you were
Absolutely. The fact that there's going to be electronic transmission of votes is a critical game changer potentially. But we are shining our eyes. You can't say because there's been improvements in that bit of the technology that you're not going to be aware of the potentials for people to steal your votes. We will be vigilant, and hopefully, God willing, we come out on top. Now, as regards being one individual in what might be a den of wolves, it's important that we realize that I will not be the first. Right? I know it appears simply as a den of wolves and one guy, in quotes, that's going in there. But it's not the case. There are people who believe in Nigeria and who believe in, say, strong institutions, who believe that we should not be building illicit wealth for a few individuals at the expense of strong institutions. We have people in there who are already embarrassed by the way our image happens to be on the international scene. They are one of us. They're in there. We have people who typically cringe when people say, oh, this is the Nigerian way, and they don't think that there is any such thing, or that they, as Nigerians, are part of that status quo. We have people in there, in the National Assembly, who absolutely believe that it makes no sense to politicize insecurity. We have people who believe very strongly that ethnic politics stands in the way of progress for all. So what I'm going to say is, frankly, that I believe that we will be able to make consensus across party lines with people who have the best interest of Nigeria.
Like-minded people. And
absolutely.
I believe you also mean people from the new Nigerian political party, People's Party, NNPP. Now, talking about NNPP, let's digress a bit and talk about your presidential candidate for your party, Alhaji Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, former governor of Kano. What do you think he has above other candidates that are contested in these elections, and why should people go out and vote for him?
One of the things I have to say once again is, let's not digress and let's not focus on presidential candidates. But I will drop one piece that most people don't think about when they think about Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, His Excellency. Every single person that is on the ballot at the top four, as it were, started their careers more than 20 years ago politically. And what I'm saying to you ultimately is this: as a Nigerian who believes in Nigeria, do not be swayed by the presence and the attraction of the presidential candidacy, because your influence in determining who becomes president is minuscule. It is tiny. It is almost infinitesimal. However, you can determine to a certain extent who becomes president in 8 years, 12 years, 16 or 20 years by investing and pushing and promoting candidates who are running for House of Reps, who are running for House of Assembly, maybe even local government and Senate. That's the focus. But about Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, the future president of Nigeria, it's important to realize that he's representing a group of people who, to a large extent, have been marginalized for a long time and who happen to have large electoral value. Don't sleep.
Okay, that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you very much, Oluwatosin Odunfa, Yewa South and Ipokia Federal Constituency candidate for the new Nigerian People's Party. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on Politics HQ, and all the best for your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.